right, welcome to the FA40 podcast. I am your host, Josh Proch. And today, our topic, we're going to talk about heart health and cardio and how and why your heart needs more than just cardio to be healthy. And we also need to be physically strong and have what we call here at Pittsburgh North Fitness, work capacity. So when a lot of people think of heart health, what typically comes to mind is, low-fat diet and cardio. Those are the two main things there, and not necessarily thinking about, how they're exercising and stuff like that outside of maybe just doing more cardio and things like that. So there's some new research that is pretty interesting, and it's showing that cardio may not be enough. Cardio by itself may not be enough, and it may not even be the best way to improve heart health by itself alone. So this is kind of interesting. This is the opposite of what a lot of people are doing and things like that. So a recent study from the Department of Environmental Health at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, they compared cardiovascular disease-related events and push-up capacity versus cardiovascular endurance testing and cardiovascular disease-related events. So basically what they did is they looked at people that had cardiovascular events in the past year, and then they looked at those same people and what their push-up capacity was and what their cardiovascular, from a stress test, what the results on that were. So where they got these people, they had a little over 1,100 Indiana firefighters. They were all men between the ages of 21 and 66 years old. And what they did is they followed them over a 10-year period, looking at this data and looking at their incidence of a cardiovascular event, so like a heart attack, stroke, things like that. And what they found was that the ones that could complete 40 or more push-ups in a row, they had a 96% less occurrence of a cardiovascular related event in the upcoming year compared to those who couldn't do 40 push-ups. And these push-ups, they weren't like super fast. They were set to a metronome of 1 second, just kind of like tick, tick, tick. So every tick was like tick down, pause, tick up, tick down, tick up, like that. They also found that those who could only complete between 0 and 10 push-ups in a row, they had a 15% increased cumulative risk of a cardiovascular related event. So we have both ends there. The ones that are over 40 push-ups, they have a 96% less occurrence of an event, and then the people that can't get even 10 had a 15% increased risk. And then they also found that push-up capacity showed to be a greater indicator of a cardiovascular related event than a treadmill stress test. So meaning, what this means here is that those who completed and passed the stress test, but they couldn't do the 40 push-ups, still showed to be at an increased risk for a cardiovascular event. As like with all studies, there's obviously going to be flaws and things like that. And this isn't to say that just by being able to do 40 push-ups, you're going to prevent a cardiovascular event. But the evidence here is strongly supporting that. And the more push-ups you can do, the less risk there. Now, the reason for that is if you're being able to do more push-ups, you're probably going to weigh less or be at a lower body weight and a lower body fat percentage than somebody who can't. And, you're probably, if you're able to run, you may have good cardio strength, but you don't have very, very good or adequate strength. And that puts you at risk. Think about people we've got hunting season coming up here, and you always hear about the guys dragging their deer out of the woods and having a heart attack. This is kind of the same thing. When we start doing the push-ups or we start doing any type of physical activity, this is putting higher stress on the heart and taxing the body more than just running and cardio activities do. And that's going to, like I said, just challenge the heart more there too. So the push-ups, they actually provide an outside stimulus that's a little bit more challenging on the heart and the body systems and things like that. With this, they only used men, but we would probably find similar results with women. And the differences might be in the total number of push-ups, where we saw the decreased risk and the increased risk and things like that. But the body is still the same there. We're just gonna, it's probably might not be 40 push-ups, it might be 30 push-ups, something like that. And off of this, there was also a second study that was done by the University of Copenhagen in Denmark. And what they found was that strength training reduces heart fat better than high intensity interval training. So this is like the HIIT training. So when we're doing traditional strength training where we're working, then we take a rest, like for a minute, 90 seconds, 2 minutes in between sets. Then we go into our next exercise, rest, and going back and forth. That's what they're finding there is decreasing the fat inside the heart better than HIIT training, which is where we're kind of just real short rest periods, moving from exercise to exercise, keeping the heart rate up, because eventually that becomes cardio at some point. It just becomes very hard cardio. And what they found here with this was that after 12 weeks of 3 45-minute sessions per week of either weightlifting or HIIT, they broke them up into 2 groups there. The weightlifting group decreased their heart fat by 31%. But the HIIT group did not see a significant decrease in the heart fat at all. So again, a lot of people are doing strength training, but they're kind of following the HIIT or Tabata methods, and that isn't as effective for heart health as regular strength training. And again, like I said earlier, when we do the traditional strength training where we're lifting heavier weights and we're taking some rest periods and things like that, what that does is we're putting a higher stress on the body's cardiovascular system and heart and everything than when we're just doing HIIT or Tabata or cardio, because eventually we just kind of get at a steady heart level and stuff there. The other thing that was interesting in this study is the HIIT group saw a 32% decrease in body fat outside the hearts, and the weight lifting group saw a 24% decrease in body fat outside the heart. So the HIIT did drop a little bit more body fat on the body than the traditional strength training, but it didn't have the same as good of health parameters there, and they both saw significant body fat loss. And this is really without making dietary changes. If we put dietary changes on there, I'm going to pretty much guarantee, just from our experience, that we're going to see the same changes in the body. If not, the strength training is actually going to start to outperform the HIIT group there. Not to get totally off subject here, but when we look at that people do a lot of HIIT and interval training, they start to shed muscle tissue after a while. And being that this was only a 12-week program, if they took this longer, maybe to like 6 months to a year, we're going to see the people that are only doing HIIT, they're going to see more joint tissue breakdown, more aches and pains. Their body fat percentage will actually start to increase at some point because they start burning off muscle tissue and they're not getting enough true strength training in there. So that was just off topic there a little bit, but getting back onto this here, what this means is that strength training seems to improve heart health better than cardio and HIIT, but it doesn't mean cardio and HIIT need to be abandoned altogether when we're looking at fat loss and health. Basically what we want to do is we want to include them into our training, making the strength training our kind of meat and potatoes, and then complementing that with some HIIT, maybe some cardio, things like that. So there's this hierarchy of training that we like to use, and this was first introduced to me by Alan Cosgrove. And what we're kind of looking at here is if you have 1 to 3 days available to work out, they need to be strength training. When you get into having like more than 3 days, now like say two to three, we can go maybe 3 strength. You could do 2 strength and a HIIT, 2 strength and 1 cardio, something like that. When you get up to like 3 to 4 days available, we can do 3 strength, a HIIT, 3 strength, a cardio, 2 strength, 2 HIIT. 2 strength, 2 cardio, 2 strength, 1 HIIT, 1 cardio. You can kind of start blending them in there, and then 5 or more days a week, you can kind of start adding in there. Again, getting about 3 strength a week is what we want. At a minimum would be 2 there. And everybody's always looking for like the perfect program and things like that. And there is no perfect program. There's no magic program. The biggest recommendation when we're looking at fitness and health is we need the strength training as the backbone of our exercise routine, and then we can supplement it with other things like HIIT workouts, cardio workouts. I like a lot of mobility stuff on the days outside of the strength things, and this could be like yoga, Pilates. We have a mobility and stretching class that we're going to be releasing here in January for our members, and those kind of things that are just gentler on the body. They teach us to move better. They get our muscles engaged and moving, because it does feel good to move every day. But again, we don't want those things to take over and be what we're doing the majority of, which is what happens when a lot of people with their exercise, they only do cardio, or they only do yoga or Pilates or whatever. We want that strength training backbone there, and we need to be getting 2 to 3 days at least every week of that, for optimal health, fitness, all that sort of stuff. So again, if you guys have questions on this, I know this can get confusing and things like that. Just reach out, ask us, ask the coaches in your sessions, anything like that. I hope, again, you find all these podcasts helpful and interesting. You're enjoying listening to them. If you do, share them. We appreciate you sharing the show, getting it out in front of other people. It helps us grow. It helps the show grow, everything like that. So that's all I have for you guys this week, and I will talk to you all next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts and rate and review us.